Hey, what's up, guys? Mike Patrick, and for this one, I'm going to be just kind of going here, but it's going to be on the topic of mental health, okay? This is going to be a really, really good video, guys, to explain not just my situation, but others' situation too. And I want to talk about it from a viewpoint of obviously someone that has skin in the game, that goes through these things, okay? And like I said, shed some light on a perspective of how to see it all as what I feel like one of my missions here, okay, is to help evolve the consciousness of people, of humanity in general, okay? And to play my part in doing so, as obviously I'm not the only person. Um, it's a body. I don't always talk about it, but you heard me talk about it before. If you haven't, you heard me talk about the body of Christ, okay? Where my findings is that Christ, though he was an actual man, okay, let's just say for lack of consensus, okay, let's say that his consciousness, God's consciousness, right, can permeate throughout literally everybody if that's his will at the time. So all is God, all is the Most High, okay? Um, how he chooses to express himself or itself, because God is probably androgynous, which is something that I'll get into in this. In my opinion, the Most High, how can he not be androgynous? You know what I mean? If you had to try to think of him in terms of a man and a woman, because I know, especially at this point, um, some people can get offensive when you call God he. You see what I'm saying? So when I use the word he, it's just based off my background, my upbringing. Like most people, we refer to God as he. You know what I mean? But God God can be, but he's probably not just one man. You know what I mean? It's a consciousness, it's an energy. You know what I mean? That can come, that can step in whenever it feels like. Okay, if that makes sense. God can be this ground I'm walking on right now, and if he chooses to open it up, that's what it is, because he's part of this of this ground. He's part of that he is that consciousness. If he wanted that tree to fall over right now, it can happen. It's all part of consciousness, and we have free will within that creative consciousness space. Okay, we all are fragmented. You can look at it like we all are fragmented pieces of that one, that overall consciousness, but it is one overall consciousness, if that makes sense. And we're just like fragmented pieces of that one overall consciousness trying to experience itself. Because at the end of the day, look at it this way: if you are the Most High, then what else do you have to do but explore yourself and consciousness and to evolve? Okay, now I like to think that the Most High has a system where at any given time all his creations play a part of the evolution and the time frame and the time space that he wants us in at any given particular point in time. So in this world, there's a lot of changes going on right now, but I suspect there's always been a lot of changes. Every time frame that people have lived in, I'm sure they probably all looked at it as they were living in some sort of end time. You know what I mean? Or some sort of great change. You know what I mean? And so I think we happen to be in a space right now where let's just say the body of Christ, okay, is coming together, is waking up, which in turn, let's just say this body, which might start off as a small number in comparison to the population, this small group is like the trailblazers, okay, the cornerstone for those for humanity, basically. Those people are the people who are the trailblazers for waking up the whole world to a new consciousness and reality, okay, and evolution. Now, like anything else, it's certain things that come with that. I think the Bible speaks of birth pains right before Christ come back. It's called birth pains. And with that said, in this change and this evolution, everything ain't gonna necessarily be perfect from the perspective of the average human, like the way you would look at things. Now, I say all that to lay a foundation. This is gonna be a longer video, so I'm not trying to rush to the point. But the point is gonna be, like all my videos, the point is gonna be plastered all throughout the video. You know what I mean? So for those of you guys who don't like me spitting, I apologize for that. Some of my country people, you know what I mean? Y'all might be like, yeah, right on. You got to dip in. You know what I mean? Some of you guys might not think that it's the most appropriate thing to do on camera. People smoke on camera, people drink on camera, do whatever. I know, spitting is a little different, but so bear with me. I'm actually, this is my last can. So I've been doing, like, I ain't drunk wine. Not that I feel like I have to stop doing anything I'm doing, but sometimes I like to stop doing things so I don't become too dependent on it. So while I feel like THC, wine, even tobacco does help with you spiritually if you know how to use these things and if you have the right consciousness and mind frame, and when you're doing it, you know what I mean, it can be beneficial. But like anything else, you don't want to be too dependent on anything. So I like to stop stuff for a while, for however long I feel like I want to or need to, you know what I mean, so I won't become dependent on anything. You know what I mean? But when we live in here, you want to experience life too. And some things can enhance that, right? Now, guys, I want to talk about some of my experiences with mental, what you would call, for lack of consensus, what people would call mental health. I'm gonna call it mental health experiences, or mental health, I don't even want to call it issues, episodes, okay? Some of my mental health episodes, okay? Guys, once you start waking up to a certain level of consciousness, okay, and if you have been, I don't even want to use the word chosen, because I feel like sometimes when I do that, anybody that does listen, I might be coming across as, and that is part of the experience, that is a part of your awakening, that is part of your process. You know what I mean? But it is something that can be looked at as a turnoff when you seem like you're isolating yourself all the time, or isolating a small group of people, like the chosen ones. And, I have this ability and I was chosen. Not saying that I personally ever say this, you know what I'm saying? But I understand how you can come to a consensus, you know what I'm saying, of this, but based off other people who might talk about similar things and things like that. You might form a idea that, oh, those type of people, they think they're special and they're gifted and they're the chosen ones, and that and this and that. I understand that. That's a logical way of the ego responding to something of that nature. And then there's also a natural response and part of the evolution of those who may genuinely be gifted or chosen or something like that. But it's still a way that you go about presenting yourself so you don't come across as egotistical. Because in part of your journey, that's like the biggest thing that you're overcoming is your ego. You know what I mean? You're exploring your spirituality more and evolving your spirituality and your overall consciousness and your overall self. You know what I'm saying? At the behest of your ego. You know what I mean? Because your ego is everything. Your ego wants to survive. Okay? So your ego wants to be locked down to this third dimensional reality as much as possible. You know what I mean? Because that's how it survives. You see what I'm saying? So we have to apparently on this plane, at least for right now. You know what I'm saying? We have to have a certain level of ego. You know what I mean? To interact. You know what I mean? The way that the world interacts generally. Um, so guys, what I want to say, like, is sometimes it can get rough. Okay, if things are happening really fast or very abruptly, if something is so like many people, once you get to a certain age, many of us may have had spiritual experiences, right? Or enough of us, right? But how I want to say it, if many of us have had different spiritual experiences, but they might have been vague enough to where it doesn't really shake your paradigm or reality that much. Okay? But then some of us can have some experiences that things will never be the same. You know what I mean? Things will never be the same. You have come across either a sector of this reality that we're in, okay, that is not common. You know what I mean? Or you have experienced a reality that's beyond this one, or maybe parallel. Some say parallel to this one. Some say, you know what I mean, that exists simultaneously as this one, but all of our senses, or not, or all of our. They say some say all of our senses aren't turned on. So a lot of things the average person cannot perceive. And then even if you do have certain gifts where you could perceive certain things every once in a while or something like that, it's not that often. Um, most of us don't live in an altered state of consciousness all the time. And then when we do, we're considered what? We're considered crazy. Like, we consider those people to be crazy, right? Or mentally ill. And it makes sense because a lot of times it gets to a point where people who have these experiences so often, it gets to a point where how do you function in what we consider regular reality? Then it becomes a thing of where, is there something wrong with this person, or is it just something wrong with they're not compatible to, they're moving past a space that is considered to be normal for the consensus reality, the overall what we consider reality. So I say that to say this: when I start having my first experiences, you know what I'm saying, and it's probably been happening. It's been happening since I was definitely a teenager. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of things you have to look back on to realize you was having an experience, because at some point in your life you may be so three-dimensional or dumbed down, or you're moving so fast through reality in your consciousness where you don't sit down and break things down. You don't have the mind to do it like a teenager and things like that. And especially if you're a teenager, like, for example, my kids, they'll be different with things like this. And this is how it's supposed to be. They'll be different with things like this because they'll have a reality, or they've been raised in the reality, or they're being raised in a reality where these things won't seem too far-fetched to them, or as too much of a shock to them. And it's important that if you are a person that has certain enhancements or gifts or whatever, like I said, depending on what reality you living in, it could be considered a hindrance or whatever. But let's face it, your children, some of your children may be born with the same thing. So you have to bring them up in a way that is nurturing to what their genetics are and how their mind and their brain works, and try to formulate a reality for them, or at least chaperone them through their reality until they get to a certain point where they're completely in control of what they think, how they think, you know what I mean, what they believe, what they know, you know what I mean, and all those different things. Um, so yeah, as far as that go, but um, like I said, you know, when you have these experiences, you might not necessarily always realize that you have an experience. Um, when I had the first time I went to like a behavioral center, and shout out to Riverside Behavioral Center. I learned to love that place. So this is now we really getting into it. Like this place, guys, almost remind me of like a movie like The New Mutants or something like that. Like when you go in there, guys, or when I went, with the times I go in there, or times I went in there, it's like supernatural stuff always going on. It's almost like everybody in there is communicating telepathically. Even the people that work there. Like like I said now, and like I said, I usually don't get into stuff like this, you know, in my videos. I try to stay as practical and as normal as possible. I think I do one of the best jobs of explaining the woo-woo stuff, or sharing my experiences or my outlook of what with a lot of stuff that a lot of people will call woo-woo or whatever. I think I do one of the best jobs of normalizing it and situating it and presenting it in a way that even say the average person with the average thinking, the average mindset, the average wiring, the average programming can even stomach it without it sounding too crazy, if that makes sense. But when you go in there, guys, like everybody is like telepathic. It seems like, you know what I'm saying? It seems like I said, because then you got to ask yourself, what is really just a figment of your consciousness and your imagination, and what's actually going on? Like if you're perceiving it, if it's not, is it not real? Like if I'm sitting right here and if my son comes out here right now and stands in front of my face and starts talking to me, like that's real. Like that would be considered real to me. But what if nobody else saw that? But it's as real as it can be for me. Now, I don't think I've had any of those type of experiences. Everything, um, especially like when I start having, because if you start having mental health episodes, what you should be doing, if it's not really some type of, because that's another thing. What we consider, then you have to try to figure out what's a mental health episode. For one, you have to, what I think is happening in the medical world is they're starting to really distinguish now. They're not so arrogant about their ideas of what reality is and what is a mental health issue and things like that. Now, I think they're at a point where they're really trying to even medically explore the idea or the fact that some people really don't have necessarily what in the terms and the way that they try to make mental health. And I'm not saying, because now they doing better with how they present mental health. You know what I'm saying? But they're starting to look at it more now as we have two classes here. Some people may really have what we just consider a mental health issue. But then again, some people really may just be different, okay? And this just may be new or not. Now, I don't know. Perhaps they've been dealing with this a certain type of way for a long time now. Perhaps we're just in a blessed time where these things are completely new to, let's say, the somewhat recent humanity. You know what I'm saying? Let's say within the past 1,000 years or something. Perhaps we're experiencing things in people that have never been experienced in recent time. And perhaps we're at the very beginning of it. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so I think now they're really trying to distinguish that and trying to figure that out while not really admitting that, you know what I mean, but not omitting it. And this is from a person who talked to therapists and talked to counselors and different people, you know what I mean, that work in the field, you know what I mean, from when I have my experiences. And you can tell that there's more of a respect now. It's not like they're always, at least for me, and I can't say like a respect now, like I know, like I personally know any different. But if I can imagine, you know what I'm saying, it probably was a time where everybody who had to go to a behavioral center or a mental health hospital or something like that were all probably just considered loonies. You know what I mean? Just crazy people, you know what I mean, or something like that. Now you can tell there's a whole lot more of a respect and willingness to try to really understand each individual case. You know what I'm saying? And taking it as every case is different. You know what I'm saying? Individually based. You know what I mean? At least for some people. I'm not saying some people couldn't be, I'm not even saying majority of people couldn't be put in a certain box or group, and another majority of people couldn't be in a certain box or group. But I think they have a respect now for there could be, even if it is just these anomalies that do happen. You know what I mean? And I think, and what I like about it is, it seemed like it's a figuring out of it together. You know what I mean? Like, as the people who experience these things have to go through it, because trust me, guys, when if you're evolving or if you start to have certain experiences that might shake your reality, everything about it is not going to be like a movie in a sense of a fairy tale. Meaning, there's some things you might say or do. And let's just say if you are bipolar or something like that, if you diagnose bipolar or something, sometimes when you having these experiences spiritually, there might be things you say or do that even you yourself, you might be like, dang, man. Like, you know what I mean? But like, what I realized in my experiences, I don't ever regret anything or take it back, or really want to take it back, especially considering that I never really did nothing that bad while having a manic experience. And my experiences get better and better when I have them, because I have more experiences with what's going on with me. You know what I mean? As opposed to, say, the first time something happened, it almost freaks you out because, okay, like, this shakes your reality. You know what I'm saying? Even if you've been being prepped for a alternate reality and things like that. You know what I mean? It's one thing to learn about certain things, but then it's another thing to experience them. You see what I'm saying? So, um, I like that it seems like we're doing it together. And like I said, it seems like even the people that work there, I'm almost to the point now where I don't think no quote unquote regular people even work at these places, because it seemed to be such a natural bond and connection between the people that work at these places and the people that have to go to these places. You see what I'm saying? So it seems to be like more of a guided evolution now, where it's more respect. Like I said, now, for example, like, we know media and things are how we shape and form our perceptions and our realities and our beliefs. Okay, and so even now you can tell how they are approaching mental health. They're not approaching it anymore. Like, for one, you didn't hear about it as much as you hear about it now, obviously. And then if you did, and when you did, it was kind of one of those taboo things almost. It was like, one of those things you kind of put in the poll, those crazy people or whatever, you know. But now it's like more of a respect. It seems like it's being looked at differently, and the people are being respected more. You know what I mean? The people who experience these things and go through these things. And I think it's more of a realization of, if these people are put in the right situation and guided right, you know what I mean, will help. Because even if you got gifts and things, it doesn't mean that you don't need guidance, you don't need help or ways to to deal with the change or your evolution, so things can go smoother. Okay. And so um man, I done been in there, and you know, I done met people, you know, like my last experience, I met a guy, I ain't gonna say his name, but white guy who who could speak tongues and Hebrew just like this, like it was nothing. It was just a gift, you know what I'm saying? And he can write everything he said. Now a lot of people would consider him crazy because it's just not normal activity. But nobody could deny the brilliance and the genius that was. You ask yourself, what can see what I'm saying? You ask yourself, how much of a asset is that really in the type of world that we live in? We all can acknowledge that it's remarkable. How can you spontaneously just know a language and be able to write it out without ever being taught it? You know what I'm saying? Most of us probably wouldn't learn it if they couldn't learn it if they taught it to us, or it probably takes so long. You know what I mean? Um, he said his experience came from, or how he realized he was able. Because I asked him, I said, when did you realize you could do this or whatever? And he said he took some ecstasy. So I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not advocating that anybody take some type of psychedelic drug so they can you know, and then perhaps they'll start opening up these gateways to higher capabilities and things like that. Um, but it does speak for those anomalies where things that we are taught that you know what I mean, we're taught certain things about. You know what I mean? It's just that you have a certain level of chaos, a certain element of chaos that will have to be the Most High, right? How does the Most High? Where did the Most High come from? How does he come out? It's a certain level of chaos, and when you look, I'm out here in my backyard right now. You out here, you looking like any, you know what I mean? Like a tree didn't have to be a tree. A tree didn't have to look the way it looks. The ground don't have to look. It's a certain level of chaotic. Anything can come out of anything type of a thing. All based on consciousness, though. You know what I'm saying? Like we all could be given a certain situation at the start, and based on how you think about something, your consciousness will determine what comes after that and what comes after that. Free will, right? Choices and stuff like that. So nobody would be able to deny that's a certain level of genius. How it came about, you know, whatever. But he has it. But then, like I said, you know, how does that really translate to the world that we live in? You see what I'm saying? Now he literally can do something that literally he might be one of, I'd say in the world of 8 billion people, he literally may be one of like 100, you know what I mean, you know, people who can do something like that. But at the end of the day, you know, what does that amount to in this world? You see what I'm saying? How can he monetize that? How can he be, you know, anything? How he could be famous off of it, you know what I mean? But how can he monetize that and things like that? You know, these are the things that we look at when having to deal with this reality, this three-dimensional reality. But at the same time, you have those type of experiences and things that exist that shows you that, you know what I mean, there's much more beyond, you know, what we, or at least some level of beyondness you know what I'm saying, than what we are used to, you know what I mean. um and then that's just one story. But you got people that, for example, a lot of times for example, if you guys, a lot of times, many of you guys might walk down the street and you might hear somebody talking to themselves, right? And a lot of you will just write it off as, oh, that's some crazy person talking to themselves. You know what I'm saying? But that's say when you're in a place like this, and if you have, and look, I'm not saying, look, that's why I said these things have to be guided, because a lot of times, like I said, what can these things do for you in in the type of world that you live in now? We know the world is changing and being more. We at the very beginning. It's rocky and it's bumpy and it's scary. You know what I'm saying? But let's just say 40, 50 years ago or whatever, before certain changes started happening. What can you do with these things? So it's easy to write a person off and just say, oh, they crazy if they talking to themselves, because how does that formulate, or how does that conform to society? It doesn't really. You see what I'm saying? So it's like it's no place for these people, even though they might have some type of gift, and if you could listen to them, they might say something that might resonate on a different, let's say, I'm just a different dimension in your mind, on your brain, or it might be something that you needed to hear, because they might be tapped into some level of information or consciousness that you not. You see what I'm saying? um but and so the point is, when you're in a place like that, though, where you're around multiple people that's like that, you see what I'm saying? You have nowhere else to go. You're there. You know what I mean? You're not in the world hustle and bustle, right? Like I said, the example I gave, you could be walking to work. You could be just going on about your life. You know how it is. You know how our ego, right? We all got our own lives now. What we, that stuff don't matter to us. It's just some guy or some woman that's crazy. You know what I mean? Oh, that's life. You know what I mean? Whatever. You don't think nothing of it. But like I said, when you're in a place like that, and you have more of a respect for consciousness, humanity, people, you know what I mean, intelligence, all those type of things. And once you're wired like that, you find a lot of entertainment and a lot of intelligence and things in places like that, because like I said, man, I'm many people that you guys would consider crazy, hell, at this point, some of you might consider me crazy. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? But um you get a lot of information, and you realize how gifted and how intelligent a lot of these people are. You know what I'm saying? It's just like autism. It's a sliding scale, and sometimes you could just be on that scale of autism, where you're just completely antisocial. You know what I mean? Antisocial, and sometimes I even use it this way. But antisocial doesn't mean that you're anti-talking or anti-being social to people. Antisocial actually means um, the way that you are, your way of being is not normal. It's not considered normal in society. So that's considered antisocial. So yeah, you have people who are considered antisocial because they're just not considered normal. But like I said, when we get in there, man, it's always if you can get in there and relax, and not be all worried about trying to hurry up and get out and stuff. Because like some of my first experiences, I was just worried about trying to get out, and I didn't know what was going on. Like I ain't gonna lie, I'm thinking they trying to kill me in there. I'm thinking they gonna, like, and things like that, and all that. So you got that level of paranoia. But when you relax and realize, like, all right, these people are here to help. They doing their job. They here to help. Everything's under the Most High. Everything all right. You know what I'm saying? Learn to um, adapt and roll with. I don't want to say the punches, because, like I said, ultimately it's a good thing. But learn to trust the process. That's what I want to say. You gotta learn to trust the process. You know what I mean? And a lot of these things are overwhelming, and it's a lot of abrupt changes going on in the world, period, and with people. And you know, um, and the Most High understands that. You know what I mean? So it's not always pretty, so to speak. That's going back to, like, some of the stuff that, people, like I said, the way you might perceive certain things. And so it might not, if people are evolving all together, it might not be pretty to see somebody who just on the street talking what appears to be talking to themselves. But you got to think, you got to know there's a certain level of reality to that, because if you seen somebody doing that, you can see that they're clearly interacting with something that's just beyond the average person's perception. Whoever they talking to, whatever they talking about is real to them. You know what I'm saying? You just can't perceive it. It's real to them. They ain't acting. You know what I'm saying? They ain't making it up. They ain't just, you know what I mean? Like, you could tell that they're having an interface with something that just, I guess, the average person can't, which would make them antisocial, especially in certain settings, right? You can't be on a job doing that. You can't be, so you know what I mean? So these things are looked down upon, and just in the society that we live in. Um, and I think it preps us for a merger better. So if there is like parallel worlds and things like that, like whatever we are going through, and that however different ways that you've been taught to perceive the world that we live in, and the past, history, and the present, and the prophecy, the future, things like that, then you know then uh I dropped that, like but that's what it is. Whatever I just said, that was probably a good point when I go back and look at the videos. But I probably made a good point. But let me see what else, man. I'm saying just trusting the process. Um, yeah, and cleaning it up. You know what I mean? Like when if things are a little rough around the edges, cleaning it up, getting the messages that you need to get. Like I said, not being so polarized about things. Like I take the Most High communicates through everything, so I use everything. And I know this is gonna sound real bad to religious people, you know what I'm saying? But the Most High uses, from like, especially from my demographic, what I come from, one of the most brilliant things I could have thought that he ever did, or they ever did, or whatever however you wanna perceive the Most High and what you call God, and who's really in the most control of our experience and our life. You know what I mean? Um, things. Uh,